There is good news in this forecast, but significant risks do remain.
Welcome to Breaking the News. I'm Kent Erdahl. You just heard it. Minnesota no longer has a forecasted budget deficit in the coming years, but today's new financial forecast comes with a massive asterisk. The federal government, multiple threats by the Trump administration to withhold federal funding due to fraud investigations makes this forecast about as reliable as the Farmer's Almanac. Danny Spiewak joins us now to explain what this all means. Hi, Danny.
Hey, Kent. Well, the budget forecast, always an exciting day at the Capitol. It happens twice a year and basically helps guide the work of state lawmakers in their legislative session. In the current budget cycle, Minnesota has money left on the table with a surplus of $3.7 billion. That's good news. And even better news, the state no longer faces a projected budget deficit in the next 2028-29 budget cycle. In the fall, the projected deficit was $3 billion. At one point, it had been $6 billion, but improved economic forecasts and cuts made by the legislature mean that the state is now projected to have a small surplus toward the end of the decade. Still, Governor Walz and his administration warned that that could quickly change with uncertainty around the Trump administration's tariff and immigration enforcement policies and his plans announced this week to withhold federal Medicaid funding to Minnesota due to fraud.
The thing that, for me, that is very frustrating is when there's things that were totally avoidable that are hurting our economy, like tariffs, and of course, like Metro Surge, and then this totally unconstitutional and a violation of states' rights for absolutely no reason, this threat to withhold money. And
this is not a budget year, but this forecast is important for lawmakers because they're tackling a number of issues around immigration enforcement, fraud, infrastructure, and gun violence proposals in the session this year. With the DFL holding the Senate by just one vote and the House still tied, lawmakers need bipartisan support to pass any bill. And today, DFL legislative leaders continued to blame the Trump administration for what they say is the chaos and uncertainty in the economic outlook. But House GOP Speaker Lisa Demuth, who is running for governor, defended the White House's plans to withhold Medicaid funding from Minnesota.
We know that we need to prevent fraud here in the state of Minnesota, and if it takes the feds putting on a little bit more pressure on Minnesota, I absolutely support preventing fraud here in the state so our tax dollars aren't stolen any longer.
So this is the last forecast that will be completed this legislative session, and then we won't get the next forecast until the end of 2026. So we got a bit of time for that.
Yeah, Danny, we heard about this uncertainty with these threats by the federal government to withhold funding. We've certainly heard a lot about them at different times, as you mentioned. Is there anything that they're really watching, one of those that's maybe most pivotal to this budget picture?
Probably the Medicaid funding, if I had to guess. So we heard state budget officials and state officials in the Walz administration say earlier this week that the amount of money that's being threatened to be withheld or will be withheld really could be catastrophic. You're talking about $250 to $260 million a quarter, so about $1 billion a year, and Medicaid is a huge part of the state budget. So that's probably the one that they're watching closest.
As you mentioned, it's an election year. It's also not a budget year, so probably not a lot of expectations about what's to come. But does this make it even more unlikely that there'll be much spending?
It's a good question. I think it's definitely going to be on the minds of the lawmakers just because of the uncertainty. They may be more hesitant to commit funding to certain proposals, or at least will try to be maybe a little more fiscally responsible in certain areas. Not that they wouldn't have been before this, but this probably just adds to the scrutiny.
All right. Thanks, Danny. We'll be right back.